Greetings, my fine fellow, bedridden, sick-pilled, and nose-slobbered fellow entities out there. It is I, your local goat, and I'm sick as shit. I can't play video games right now because my eyes hurt. I could technically play them, but it's just hard to commentate and do all that stuff on the other channel. But you know what I can do? I can read comic books. So yeah, literally last night, I had basically procrastinated on a couple of the last issues of Absolute Superman and Absolute Green Lantern the past couple of weeks. So I pretty much sat down, finished reading the issues that I didn't. I think I think it was issue 10 where I got like laid off. Where I was like, I don't want to read right now. I blah 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 or my brain was just like I'm not a way to read at the moment, or just was busy or some shit. I don't know. But yeah, so I finally sat down, read all that, and be like, oh, I want to talk about that. Was gonna write some posts on Blue Sky, and I was like, fuck it, this is so hard, and I'm just gonna use my mouth hole because my mouth hole is a much easier orifice to express wordage on things about the absolute of Superman's. I will say, similarly to how I did in that post, I do think Absolute Green Lantern is the better of the two books in terms of the read, but Absolute Superman does still have some pretty cool bits that makes it worth reading. It's not like something where you can really just pop off, like where I would say, yeah, immediately you can pop off. It's not really worth reading. Um, it is definitely like got its own brand of absolutisms, as I guess we'll call them. Because you have like the core initial books that they put out, which was Absolute Batman, then Absolute Wonder Woman, and then Absolute Superman. So you put out the Trinity, they do all that. Batman's got this hardcore like, oh, he don't got no money, but he's of the people, and he's does all this stuff, Batmanisms that all the good shit you're gonna get from Scott Snyder. Like it's very. I remember when it just came out, the people at my comic shop was like, it's very Daredevil coded. Like Daredevil became Batman, and Batman became Daredevil was the joke we were talking about with stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like the idea that a lot of people were having with that. I actually ended up dropping Absolute Batman. I think after the first arc because I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't bad, but it was not for me. Maybe I'll pick it up later because it seems like stuff. I think I literally grabbed like the issue after the Mister Freeze fill-in issue where they had the different artists come in. I think it was the artist who worked on Absolute Wonder Woman. I forget because I know they did a thing where they had a bunch of different artists pop around and shit, and it was really cool just to see all these different artists' interpretations. But back on to our core topic of discussion, which is Absolute Superman. Yes. Which is written by Jason Aaron and initially drawn by, I think it's Carmen Diaz Santos. Let us move up to the sings. Nope, it is done by Rafa Sandornoval. I hope I'm saying that right. I also have the snifflers in my nose, but I know Carmen Diaz Santos did some issues. I like that artist a lot. Yeah, Carmen Dia Guerdo Merico did a couple issues, and then the fucking artist they have on right now, the current one, Juan Ferrere. I probably am massively mispronouncing that. I am so super sorry. I'm literally just doing this off the cuff. I haven't looked up any of these people, so I don't know how the name is. Which is ironic because, like I said, I like Carmen Dia Medical's work. Is I like got introduced to him on All New X Factor, and I love the shit out of that book. That's one of my favorites with Peter David. But yeah, back on to actually discussing topics. What you have in terms of this book's absolutism kind of take on it is kind of returning Superman to his initial sort of vibe. And I mean that like in like the golden age kind of way. Like he is a person who is not jumping. He's not flying around. He's on the ground, and he's just going around and helping like your blue collar folks. And he fights like shitty people who do like fucked up business stuff or exploit workers. Words. and kind of just fights them. Like his literal introduction is, oh, he's working in a mine where it's dangerous for the workers to mine there, and these peacemakers, who are literally like got the peacemaker helmet and everything, who work for the Lazarus Corporation, are like saying, "Go! I don't give a shit. Go do it. That's your job, or we're gonna beat you." And then Superman had like already mined out the entire thing and pushed it out for all these people, so they don't have to work it and they can feed their families. And he's kind of like being a loner, and but the people he around, they see and know it's him. So like all these people know that, like, or have an inkling that this guy is the one who's been helping them. He's been assisting out and trying to assist them. It's that kind of like, oh, you're down here with us and you have this power and you're just helping us out just because you're with us. So that's what I mean by returning to his source. Like Superman as the hero of the common people, which I mean he always is, but it's like the textual portrayal of what Superman is meant to be as a person. So he's like helping these people. He hasn't fully gone in. When we hear someone talking to him, as it turns out, he's got a specialized AI cape that's like his costume and everything, and it does it. But eventually, the peacemakers come on. They attack him, and I think it was like something happens with some of the villagers, and they end up. I think in the first couple of issues, I think it's like they pretty much shoot like a crowd and do a massacre, and Superman is like forced to flee after trying to stop it, and that's kind of like how it goes. And then you get introduced to Lois Lane, who is an agent of the Lazarus Corporation. She's not a news reporter; she's a fucking military cop asshole. And what we find out from her is none of these people actually do anything beyond what a fucking computer tells them to. And that computer's name is Brainiac. And so initially we don't really know what that is. It could just be like a fun hoo-ha reference to that. And but effectively what we learn over the first couple issues is Lazarus Corporation is shitty, mistreats its workers, and exploits the downtrodden. Superman is the hero of the downtrodden, but does not want to reveal himself and tries to keep himself distant from that. And now he's being hunted by Lois Lane, and the Lazarus Corporation is aware of him, and they want him for unspecified reasons. Alongside that, the big reveal, I think it's at the end of issue 1, is Superman actually grew up on Krypton to a degree. He was like a little kid when he was on Krypton still. He wasn't a baby. So like that is the biggest reveal you get overall with this first chunk in terms of that. And then that those are kind of the main plot points. You get the backstory on Krypton, where it's like, what went on with his family then? Like, how did they do? Because like it looks like they're farmers, like literally like the Kents. Like, oh, they're farmers. Wait, if he was born on Krypton, then where are the Kents? And then Lois Lane and the whole Brainiac stuff, and then at the end it's also revealed that, oh yeah, Brainiac is a physical person. Or I initially, when I first read it, I thought it was like, oh, that's Lex Luthor. That's absolute Lex Luthor is this guy in this farmhouse just nowhere. But no, it turns out that was not it. It was just Brainiac. Um, and so that's kind of like our first I think 2 issues or 3, I forget. But basically, what you get is this remixing of his origin, where even on Krypton, like the L's, the House of L's are also the working class people. That symbol on his chest is not like a symbol of his house, but it's also the symbol of his class. Like in Krypton, we see over the next couple of issues, like Krypton is a highly rigid, highly classist society where you are defined by your role. You cannot exceed that, and if you do, you violate the law. And anything that is not basically written for you or defined by the system is penalizing. Like Kal-El's mom is a woman who wanted to go to space, and they canceled that program because, oh, there's nothing else out there. It does not matter. You didn't use the AI to write this paper, therefore you fail. And then this is also paralleled later on with Lois Lane, who, like, all her reports are meant to be taken in from an AI made by Brainiac or the Lazarus Corporation, and taken in and like regurgitated how it is and like done up for a spin on the company's behalf. And then she starts doing it on her own, and that causes problems. And so you get a lot of these fun parallel stories where you have stuff happening in the backstory parallels what's happening in the current story, and you establish the world for Superman. You establish, okay, here's his supporting cast, here's who he is, or trying to figure out who he is, because that is pretty much the main corresponding thing going through these initial couple issues is who is absolute Superman. And to a degree, like even he in him, I think intentionally so in the story, doesn't know who that is. Kal-El, Clark, or Superman doesn't know what he himself is or what he means, because he's like very much like with like the pretty hair that he gets at the very start, like the longer hair, he's very deliberately meant to look younger. He doesn't look like your 30, 40 some classic Superman with the Jerry curl like let me see if I can put up on the thing. Yeah, whatever. I'll just pop an image down instead of just looking at the carriers. But yeah, like the classic image of Superman, with like who looks like your dad. Like this is a young guy. He's figuring himself out, and he's a little antisocial and is kind of burnout, which I think is an intentional play on the state of the world. Because the way they portray Absolute Superman throughout the book is he wants to do good, he wants to help people, but he also is struggling with kind of I don't want not cynicism, but like kind of nihilistic, like intrusive thoughts of like, oh, am I is this like even going to help anything? Look at all this horror. So it's like the horrors of the world dragging him down and like suppressing the hopeful urges or hopeful wants and like what you could do to help that. And so that's kind of like the push and pull, especially as we get on, because eventually they introduce the Omega Men, who are this kind of anti-Lazarus, anti-corporation sort of group that like is working in and trying to undermine the evil corporations and shit. And so they want to work with Superman, and Lane is trying to track it down. And then Jimmy Olsen's revealed to be one of the Omega Men, but he's kind of shitty at it. And then we get all this stuff, and we find out that the person who really wants Superman is Ra's al Ghul, the head of the Lazarus Corporation. And so Ra's wants him to be his son. I think I'm not a biggest Batman person, but I think it's also kind of a riff on that sort of Batman idea. Um, or to me personally, I think of the fucking I don't know if it's Superman the animated series or Justice League, where they do like the thing where they think Superman thinks he's actually the son of Darkseid in the exchange to save Krypton or whatever. It's been forever since I've watched that episode, but that sort of thing. Like he wants him to be his herald, his way forward, his true champion, his son, and like that's why he's being hunted down is because Raish wants to force him to be his son, uh, in a way, which plays into a whole lot of the themes. Because effectively, from there, you have a lot of like, oh wait, Superman over here, it's me, it's Lois Lane, and like Superman being pushed from all these factors of wait, this is fucked up. What we've been doing. Lois finds out, and learning with Jimmy as well as they kind of become like a duo as you do as like these both sides who've seen this conflict and are kind of starting to figure out some things about both of their sides. And then you have Superman who's being pushed and pulled, being like, "You have to do more." No, like you're doing enough, or all these things with like his cape, soul, basically being like this protective sibling that's trying to guide him, but also advise him through all these things. His own internal thoughts of like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" Because that's effectively what he is as a character. He doesn't know what he is. He's not fully grown and become that Superman that we all know and love, especially in this first, like the first 14 issues, which is the main kind of story that they've run through so far, uh, where he's just kind of figuring out who Superman is. And eventually, we do learn like a bit more of like the backstory. Like eventually, the L's they make their rocket ship. The Science Council figures out, but the L's leak it to everybody, and so you get riots on Krypton. The L's saving as many people as they can with their technology, which is where Superman's cape comes from. It's based off this dust and all these things, and so you get like what in turn would inspire Superman to help people from his original parents, who are kind of this remix of the Kents as well, because they're the farmer people, like making this last effort to save humanity or Kryptonianity, Kryptonians, um, in this kind of thing. And it still does that whole classic parallel where Krypton is meant to be Earth, and it's like if we made our worst decisions where we didn't listen to those who were trying to help us, and we just kind of closed our heads off and destroyed ourselves. And in this case, the idea is people tried their best, were suppressed, and they tried to save what they could, and they did, and that hope lives on in the form of Superman. And potentially maybe other Kryptonians. And there's a lot of fun stuff that they do actually with that sort of like play arc. Like you see a lot of the buildup of that society in these flashback elements. Like you see them primarily from the perspective of his parents, a little bit of Clark, and all these things. Like you see his parents growing up, how they are stripped of their like higher society rules and pushed into the ground. How they actually do kind of enjoy being people of the earth. That feeling of that sense of community, and what then that comes from it of the redlands as they call it, which is like your farmlands and stuff. And in turn, how that all kind of works out, and how they still keep using those scientific things to assist and grow and help, and at the end kind of try to save folks. And then there's a fun bit of stuff where it's like the House of Zod symbol is the symbol for cops and riot police and all this sort of stuff, like the that sort of thing. So that if they ever do an absolute Zod, you can see like the fun parallels with the symbols and stuff. Or whatever I don't know if they might do that, but it's just one of those fun nods where it's like, oh, if you know Superman shit, you get a lot of reward. And that's kind of like a big plus of this book is if you know a lot of Superman shit or history of Superman, they're clearly remixing a lot of the material here to play with that. Like the whole last son of Krypton in turn is then being played into like the son of Ra's al Ghul, like who Superman is, and then all the like sense of identity that comes with that. Alongside that, you also just get the further developments of stuff that happens. Uh, come back from my rambling bit about the backstory. You go back to the current day storyline. Eventually, they get revealed that the Omega Men, they get Superman working with him. They use a thing to help him. They have a thing called a father box, which I guarantee is going to come in later, which is like a mother box but different. Soul does not like the father box. It's fucking weird. And in turn, freaking Lane and Jimmy start to suspect things, and then at the big final assault on Lazarus, where they try to take him down, it's revealed, oh yeah, no, the leader of the Omega Men, that's Talia al Ghul. Everything was a fucking oh god, like a false flag slash like, oh, I'm creating the opposition to control the opposition fucking thing. And all this is was to just capture Superman as well, see how he can go, so he can then have absolute Brainiac, who's been part of Lazarus, like fucking stick needles in his brain, copy all his memories, and fuck with his mind to make him a murderer. And then you get to the like final like arc, which is like, who will Superman be? Like that's effectively what this arc will be defined by is like all of these things that want who is Clark Kent, and he's defined by what people want him to be, as well as his losses, kind of. Because you get a lot of stuff about like Clark wanting to alienate himself from the world because he is like, oh, everything I've done, everything I've been around has died, and I don't want to be around that death. He suffered so much loss, so much pain, because that's why they had him grow up on Krypton and like had everything taken away from him. That he comes to Earth, he eventually, okay, I'll try, and goes to help people. He eventually comes across the Kents, lives with them for a very small amount of time, starts to learn English, and then he's ripped from them. The Kents are devastated when fucking Lazarus comes in. It's like, there's an alien. We've been told like McCarthyism, alien. We're gonna get them and wreck everything. And so the Kents like are ripped away from his life like that. That kind of parental relationship that he probably would have wanted slash could have rekindled parts of his family, because the Kents are very much parallels to his actual parents in this story. Like they literally like people who farm, which again that's symbolic because they are like the Kents in this version of the story. And we get to see Ma Kent, like she's old and senile and constantly it's like, oh, he's gonna be here soon, my angel, my boy. And it's like one of those things where you get sad, and all this sorts of stuff. Because we do get little glimpses of Kansas over the course, and then at the very end, like after freaking we see Brainiac's backstory, where it turns out he was a instead of him being Brainiac one, he was just the shittiest, most like non-useful Brainiac you could be, because they went with the like multiple robot angle instead of the singular one, where it's like, oh hey, his job was to shovel trash into a thing and then dig through it to see if there was any materials that were actually useful. That was his purpose. Then the ship he had on crashed. He survived, eventually opened the door, and was like, oh, I'm Brainiac number one now. I'm the smartest. I get to treat everyone like shit. And now he's this weird, fucked up husk with his brain exposed, like weird servo legs and all this other technology stuff. And he has the other Brainiacs around, and he like, so if they disrespect him or if they do something smarter than him, he's like, ah, one demerit for you. Now cut off your eye, now your tongue, now your toes. And like we see a good bit of this like as we lead into like the captured arc where he's torturing Clark, trying to get him fucking with his memories to get him to be like a killer, and in turn like that sort of the they slowly ramp up the Supermanisms a whole lot. Like I said, Clark is meant to be portrayed as more down to earth at the start, where he is literally just jumping around, going super fast, and helping people. Then crazier and crazier shit happens. And as we get to the end of this arc, you see like little things like this where Brainiac is like, dang it, why is he not doing the murder? He's supposed to kill me in the simulation to represent that him's finally going over the edge. Dang it. And then Clark attempts to break out. Uh, as it turns out, he's been whispering on a supersonic level that the other Brainiacs eventually attempt to try and help him. And he does actually break out at the same time. Lois and Jimmy are going to break out, due to the help of Lois's dad, who is a vet who lost his legs and has cybernetics thanks to Lazarus, who's broken in to save his daughter after he like warned her enough about like, hey, don't get involved. If you go beyond the scope and you try to look deep into the abyss is going to take you away. And it's like, fuck it. All right, I got my robo legs and guns, and we have to get the fuck out of here. And he's fighting his way out, helps him get out. And then we get the whole big old shebang where it's like Superman was awake, he's about to snap Brainiac's thing. And oh no, Lois's dad is dead. And you get all this like big old dramatic stuff. And then Soul like reactivates and escapes their confinement as well and wraps around Clark. And it's like, who are you? What are you? And trying to remind him who he is right before he snaps Brainiac's neck. And then, boom, taken to Kansas. And then you get the final chunk of this, which is the Battle for Kansas, where you kind of get more, I think, the idea of the people who inspire him and kind of like what eventually Lois's kind of corresponding view towards Clark can be. Because Clark is very much like every person he meets, even if he thinks that's a bad situation or they initially are like afraid, they view his actions as good. They start to be like this inspiration, even if everything is fucked unbelievably or like it's some initial negative context. Like Clark's actions are inspiring hope and goodness in the world. Um, and then you get a big old fuck off fight where the people of Kansas rise up and they're like, "We know what he done for this town. We're gonna help him." Because they have like, oh, he helped the town out a whole lot. He would always come back to help the people here. And then the entire town is under siege. Lois and Jimmy try to get the word out. There's a big old epic fight for fucking the soul of Superman, and to not have everybody here murdered, and shit. And it is a whole fuck off thing, and whatnot. And then there's an epic fuck off sword fight between Ra's al Ghul and Superman, where Superman, like, because this suit's made of like nano machines, dust, shit. He rips off the symbol of it and he turns it into a sword, and they have a big old fight where he's fighting Ra's al Ghul with a kryptonite sword, and it's very epic. But this is where I think the main problem of the book comes in is Scott Snyder knows how to write a crazy batshit like hardcore Batman where it's really fun. Like the Absolute Line definitely is composed of like a lot of edgy, as one could describe it, kind of vibes. Or Goth, one or the other. Like there's a lot of stuff you could do, or at least those initial titles. They're very, very Goth in terms of that. Like very much like the punch into the grain kind of thing. Whereas the other two titles are, or other three titles are very different. Like fucking Martian Manhunter is Dennis Camp doing some detective, drug trippy alien shit. Absolute Flash is Jeff Lemire doing a like young person coming of age and relation to their father sort of story based off what I've read. And then you have Green Lantern, which is fucking high concept sci-fi shit, and as of the current arc, some fucking disaster gay drama with the main character and her ex-wife. Uh, and so that's like kind of like how I viewed a lot of the initial titles as like very goth coded, which you can kind of see because it's like everything's so dark and hope has to be so hard to fight, and that's very much like kind of the vibe. It's a much more darker universe. But I think Absolute Superman has been the one that struggled the most with that aspect of like how do we make Superman goth essentially? How do we make him darker? And the book really struggles with that in less presentation, but more internal monologue and dialogue. Because we get a lot of capturing balloons between Soul and Superman, his internal thoughts and like musings, and it really bumps up in this chunk of arc with the battle for Kansas, where it's like Superman had just been tortured with like information like, oh, I could kill them, and you get this edgy like just snap their neck, all this stuff, and it's like they either because it's not enough. Like that's my main complaint is the oh he's been just now put in with this like killer urge or like these intrusive thoughts, but it's not enough to really work because they're very minor. Like it's not filling up page or it's like not hidden in the background like a little like floating text blur like do it, do it, do it, do it. Like that sort of thing where it's like the building up and the feeling of it of like you're being pushed and pulled between like helping people and holding on to your morals and then breaking and snapping and just becoming the destroyer of worlds that Ra's al Ghul wants. And I think that's what they're intending to do sometimes with the dialogue, or just kind of be a little more like hardcore. But it comes off as very, and not in like the negative, edgy Mark Millar kind of way, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna say something fucked up and shit, but more like, oh yeah, man, I'm so dark and like cool, like that kind of high school writing like kid sort of vibe. I think is what I would best describe it as, and that's kind of where it doesn't work because I can vibe with that kind of writer. I like me some Spawn stuff. I like me some juvenile like fucking stupid shit every once in a while. But here it feels like it's sometimes some of that dialogue is or in monologue or captions works a little bit against it, whereas mostly like the actual presented story visually and speech bubble stuff works well to get that vibe across where it's like Superman is constantly being pushed and pulled between all his names. Like Ra's al Ghul wants him to take on his name. He doesn't know who he is defined by, and people keep calling him Superman. He doesn't like that. He doesn't know. He like Kal El is effectively like this husk, and he doesn't know who that is either. And effectively, at the end of the story, you kind of get the new name for Superman that I think he himself feels is better suited because he literally says during the big old epic like Dark Souls battle between him and Ra's al Ghul, fucking he says Kal El is dead and there's like a lot of like the child of nowhere or something like that. It's trying to be like epic and edgy and whatnot. And again, it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't. And it's not bad, but it's like you really wish it would go either a little heavier on it, just so you can go like, oh, that's so hardcore, or like pull it back a bit and just kind of lean into more traditional Superman-y things, contrasting like a super shitty world. Um, and like and a young Superman coming and figuring out how to define himself in that. Like that's what they're trying to do, but it just kind of struggles a bit. And at the end of the arc, he defeats Ace Al Ghul. They get the message out. Lazarus is fucked. And then fucking Absolute Huck Man is on the prowl for fucking Superman, who was introduced basically as a right wing narc in the McCarthy trials in a book called Absolute Evil, which is basically the formation of the Absolute Justice League, but all the Absolute Justice League members are the villains of various books. And like the Absolute Joker finds out, oh yeah, no, our fucking universe's entire atoms is composed of like the order of evil, and so literally we are religiously made to be fucking this way, and anyone who tries to subvert that order is a baddie. Oh hi Carter, please bring in the corpse. So this was Oliver Queen, and he smashed his head in, and that's kind of like setting up the next sort of grouping or potential like thing that the heroes have to deal with is the Absolute Justice League is on its way to fuck everyone's shit up because they're now unifying all these like corporate shitheads and supervillains and stuff. And then also fucking the one person missing is Absolute Lex Luthor, who is revealed to just be a normal ass dad in suburbia chilling with his fucking family. So like that's Absolute Lex Luthor, just some fucking ginger dude chilling on his porch. Um, but yeah, and that kind of picks up in the next arc, which I think actually has done a lot better because the first arc is basically about introducing you to this version of Superman, try to establish his cast and like his kind of dilemma. Then the second arc, or second part of that arc, is effectively it kind of all just rolls into one, is the fight for who Superman will be and him being defined by his losses. Like you get more of like the tragic elements of Krypton's death and how he lost his family, how he was aware of it all, and the death of that kind of thing, and how that like parallels him not knowing what he should do on Earth because so much of this shit is also reeking of the Science Guild's bullshit on Krypton. Um, and like at the very end of it, like Martha passes in that thing. We finally get Superman going to see her, and the woman we've been seeing taking care of is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but she did try to get make you this," and gives him a box, and then we see like him opening the box in a field, and it's a Superman suit. It is literally his like the classic sort of Superman suit that you'd see that like Ma Kent would have made for him, um, and him having lost that like as he sits floating or standing in kind of like a wheat field, and then in the box you see for my loving angel for my son. I don't remember the actual exact thing, but it's basically like for my boy, and then she writes for Clark Kent, like, and that's where he gets his name. Like that's who he is. He is Clark Kent. He is this person that lost so much and could have had this, and that is like Clark. Like Clark is the son of all these things, but primarily of his parents on Krypton and the son who could have been on Earth with Martha and Jonathan Kent. And now he, in the next arc, they like, oh yeah, no, I was able to buy the farm through a bunch of shenanigans by faking my like. He probably did some bullshit, but basically he just bought the farm. So now he owes it. He's trying to fix everything like a person. Um, and oh yeah, I forgot to mention he loses fucking Soul, who he literally like acknowledges as his big brother. Because then Brainiac hacks into him and he's like, I'm not gonna let you use me to be a murderer, and so he deletes his sentience, and so now he's even more isolated. But he also has the town, like everyone in fucking Smallville knows. We get Lana Lang, and in the literal first issue, or I think it's the first issue of this arc that we get right now, like literally there is a parallel moment where Lana's like, so Clark, do you want to, maybe go down for a date? And he like freak out having to go save somebody as he's starting to really do the Supermanisms. where it's like, oh, I'm literally listening to the world for all the stuff going on. And so you have him starting to do that dip zip do, and so he also has that happen with Lana and Lois when they're both asking him to go on a date, and you get like that classic, "Oh, Superman, you gotta choose to who you gonna be with these ladies," or like you know like your classic Superboy kind of thing that they would say like, "Oh yeah, he had Lana Lang was his first love, but also you have Lois, so you kind of have that kind of ooh, who's he gonna get with, and that fun little play where it's like, okay, that's fun. And then in this arc, he's literally listening to the world and like having like, again, this is kind of like what I think is more interesting in terms of trying to portray a Superman who doesn't know what the fuck to do, who hasn't had the time, nor also like is able to really hold himself down. Like he is much more human in how the world affects him. Hearing the entire world is kind of fucked up and scary, and so he kind of freaks out sometimes, and goes up into space and screams because he's like, I'm having to listen to the entire world. I'm hearing all these screams, these horrible things, and I'm listening out to try and save people. Because now I'm out of the darkness, I'm out of that, and I'm like, oh god, ah! Along with that, he literally dropped off Ra's al Ghul in Pakistan, where he committed a bunch of war crimes or crimes against humanity, I guess. And now he's in a jail cell, and literally he every day, I guess, is the implication. He's coming to that jail cell and reading a book of poetry composed by children of the families of people Ra's killed or was responsible for their deaths in some way to try and force him to understand. Like Ra's in the times like, oh, I got toilet paper, cool, that's nice, and Superman's like, no. And so you see him slowly degrading because he doesn't have the Lazarus pit over time, as well as Superman just constantly reading that, and you get that sort of thing throughout this arc, where it's like him trying to rehabilitate him in some degree, like because he's like, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to try and see if I can get you to repent in some form, like either to save your own soul or whatnot. That sort of like eternal optimistic kindness. And alongside that, you get fucking Carter Hall coming in, being like, hey kid, I get it. You're new to the scene, you got these powers, but here's what you gotta do, alright, son? Like, he literally is the most fucking boomer coded, like, betray your friend's ass, cop motherfucker. You could, like, like, I read it as very much like, yeah, like this is like a dude from the 50s who fought Nazis and shit, but also betrayed every fucking person in him because of McCarthyism. Like, because that is explicitly what they portray him as. Like, he literally sells out every other superhero at the time from the Golden Age because it's like, ah, yeah, fucking communism. Ah, I hate commies, those red scum. And it's fucking like his dialogue is written perfectly for that kind of asshole. Like literally, like his introduction to Superman is like, hey son, we gotta have a talk. And during the entire course of that conversation, Superman is occasionally flying off. It's like, hey, sorry, there was like a plane that was about to fall down. I had to save them. And then, sorry, there was a guy who I was afraid was going to die, but he was just laughing weird. Sorry. And like he has to stop him because like he's doing the Superman thing, but he's also being kind of overwhelmed by it. And so Carter is like, I've been doing this for a long time, son. You gotta pace yourself, but also you gotta make peace with Lazarus. You can't fucking fight these corporations. You gotta work with them. And it's like he's the most like scab ass fucking superhero fucking dude ever, because he's like a corporate black ops assassin who murders fucking people who want to change the status quo. And so effectively, you get him trying to talk to Superman into doing what he does, and then, oh, Parasite got released from fucking captivity because the Lazarus Corporation had a bunch of their shit being taken, and Talia ordered one of them to shoot it and releases Parasite. So we get to see Absolute Parasite, who's this weird sort of multi-mouth creature that's just grabbing and absorbing people and feeding off their like adrenaline and stuff and growing. And again, they're doing much better where it's like Hawkman is like, fuck it, just murder this thing, and the people inside of it doesn't matter, just fucking kill them all. And Super's like, no, there's people in there. What the fuck, bro? Like, just give me a second. We'll figure out how to stop this without killing the monster, which is clearly a living thing, and the people. And literally, like he's like the pessimistic. Like that's literally, I think, what the idea is. Like Carter Hall in this story is a pessimistic, asshole of what Superman could have been, not in the way Raish wanted it, where he was like a harbinger of doom, but in like the defender of the status quo. Whereas in standard DC, the defender of the status quo is good, hope, justice, and all that sort of thing. Like the classic hope, justice, the American way, and that original idea of like just helping others, fighting for the good fight to protect others, and trying to work towards a better world. And here, the dude upholding the status quo is Carter Hall, who's a fucking asshole who just is like, well, they're stuck in that thing. Time to murder. Like it's a perfect contrast. And the art here is fucking phenomenal too. The fucking artist they got on here is so good. It's like painterly and shit, and they do really well to portray like the monstrousness of fucking Parasite is super great, and like also the action's really fun too. And so that's kind of where we're at. Where it's like he eventually saves the city through like this cool kind of he basically just lets himself be absorbed by Parasite and uh, lets his brain in turn help all the people inside. Like Lois got calmed down by him saving her from Parasite, and that caused Parasite to let go because it didn't have anything to feed. And what we do here from Parasite is it does not want to be alone, and it's hungry. And so, like, literally, he just gets absorbed, does his Superman thing where he's just in the mindscape of this whole thing, where it's like, oh, okay, you're all okay. I'm Superman. I'm gonna help you out. Like the Superman thing. Like this arc very much is doing more modern Supermanisms, whereas the first arc was very much defined by kind of a more grim and gritty aspect, which I think that's deliberate. Like maybe they were trying to do that, but I honestly I like how this arc feels overall more just from the get go. Like this is has a lot more fun. Like literally, I think in the next issue we're supposed to get like absolute Black Adam revealed because they established Teth Adam's tomb and all this other bullshit in Hawkman's origin story. And we also see that maybe there is some regret in Hawkman. It's like, oh, keep him away when he's in the mindscape. The parasites causing him to freak out. So he's very clearly like all the people he's murdered. But who knows? I kind of like the idea, even though Absolute Hawkman looks sick as shit. Like he has these like kind of biomechanical wings instead of like the feathered ones. This kind of crazy version of his helmet, and he's wrapped up in bandages, and then fucking has the black. I think it's the Black Hawks, which was the military plane group. Like outfit, and it looks fucking sweet. It looks sick. I want me an action figure of that motherfucker. That when am I getting my action figure, Todd? When am I getting my absolute Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and then fucking Hawkman action figure, Todd? Come on, Todd. I thought she was supposed to be the Toy Man, Todd. Oh man. But yeah, so effectively, like this start of the arc is a lot better than the first arc, which the good thing is like it's pretty easy to pick up from what they where they popped it off. Like it's literally, oh, it's Clark Kent working on a farm and he's just trying to fix a tractor, and from there. So I think the issue, I think it's 15, yeah, 15, something on the screen, is probably where I'd recommend people check it out. Ironically enough, before the first, because like I like Absolute Superman, but I don't know if I'd recommend those first two volumes. Like I have it all in fucking the fucking issues. But if I do pick up a trade of this, I probably am going to pick up the third volume just because the artwork is nice in this, and I would like to look at it, and also just I kind of like how the feel of this story is more. It feels more cohesive in an idea, in terms of how it wants to portray its characters. Like, yes, it is the whole absolutism where shit's harder, shit's more hardcore, but also it feels more true to Supermanisms with the kind of edgy things it does. Like Superman freaking out about having to hear all these voices. Okay, that makes sense. People being worried about him more, and it's like the whole town of Smallville knowing who he is, as well as the shitty life of like Lois and Jimmy now having to do the Daily Planet, which is this roach infested fucking newsroom, which I think is going to be fun that they set up. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. It just, I don't know. The first arc is fine. I say first arc because it's two volumes, but like fucking it's hard to really nail down how I feel about it because it is such a 50-50. I think I would say I like the first volume, which I think is called the Last Dust of Krypton or something. I like that those first six issues more, where they are really defining everything, and then I think the Ra's al Ghul fucking battle arc, while having cool hype moments, only really has that as a spectacle element, and then slowly dips into some Supermanisms that are very interesting, as well as like doing cool explanations of Superman as he relates to this world. Because that's what I think is going to be more interesting is Superman running up against the wider world and not just one evil corporation. Because literally, like at the end of the most recent issue, it's like Hawkman is like, "We got a problem," and so now the Absolute Justice League knows Superman's not gonna fucking play ball because he's can't be sold and shit. And I think that'll be more interesting where you have the wider world working against Superman, and I think that works out a bit better versus fucking Ra's al Ghul. I don't know. And then they're trying to set up Lex Luthor too, because Brainiac does some fuck shit to his fucking normal ass family, where he turns them all into bacon. Uh, so again, that's the edgy element, but it feels I don't know, like the way this arc feels so far, starting off from going from 15 to I think it's 17 right now, feels better. It feels better in terms of like trying to balance out itself, but we'll have to also see. I don't know, maybe that also comes from Jason Aaron writing the book for a while and figuring out the voice he wants to use. But yeah. So that was my sick ass rambling, and sick as in I can't not smell out my nose right now. Rambling about Absolute Superman. I hope y'all enjoyed this bullshit. And if you want to hear more, comment down below. I read a lot of books. I mean, I try to. Fucking dear God, my fucking book reading has been absolute dog shit. Absolute. But yeah, if there's any other books or any other absolute titles you want me to read, because I've read all of them. I read Wonder Woman. I read Batman. I dropped Batman. I dropped Wonder Woman just for money's sake. I could probably pick it up back now, or just buy trades, so that's the easy thing. Um, and then fucking I read Flash because I read anything by Jeff Lemire, and then I'm waiting for trades for Green Lantern, but I do really like that book as well. I'm going to start reading that in trade just for money's sake, balancing wise. Um, but yeah, that book's a really good too. I cannot wait to see where that goes. Blah, 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 blah. uh, other apps. Oh yeah, they're doing the absolute Green Arrow, which is sick, and fucking everyone and their mom is going crazy over Absolute Black Canary because she looks woo snoo snoo, my friends. And then there's fucking Absolute Zatanna, which again, fucking everything is so goth and punk in this universe. Like it's so nice. Like that's literally it's just what if DC but goth and punk. Yeah. All right. Well, if y'all enjoyed this, this is the first. Fuck it. I'm ending the video. Bye.